Welcome back to the Manufacturing Monthly Podcast, brought to you by MFP Seals. I'm Rod Seals.
And I'm Sprue Hopper. You know, I'm a total newbie when it comes to polymers.
Oh, yeah?
But even I know that storing seals properly is super important.
Absolutely.
We're going to unpack some best practices today.
Yeah.
So our listeners can keep those seals in tip-top shape.
Absolutely, Sprue. And speaking of new things, you just got yourself an AI puppy, didn't you?
I know, right?
Have you thought of a name yet?
I'm thinking maybe Bite or Pixel.
Ooh.
What do you think, Rod?
Those are good. Maybe Kilobyte for a bit more punch.
Oh, I like that.
But hey, let's dive into the world of seal storage first.
Right back to business.
Well, Sprue, you might be surprised to learn that temperature fluctuations can seriously shorten a seal's lifespan.
Really?
We're not just talking about extreme heat either.
So what's the ideal temperature range to aim for?
The sweet spot for most seals is below 100 degrees Fahrenheit. And it's not just about keeping them away from obvious heat sources like radiators and boilers.
Right.
Think about things like direct sunlight, too. Those rays can really heat things up.
That makes sense. It's easy to overlook those less obvious sources of heat. So what happens to seals if they get too cold?
That's a great question, Sprue, because many folks don't realize that cold temperatures can be just as damaging as heat. Below 59 degrees Fahrenheit, those polymers can become brittle and prone to tearing. Even handling them too roughly in the cold can cause cracks or breaks.
So it's all about finding that Goldilocks zone. Not too hot, not too cold.
Right.
What about humidity? Does that play a role in seal storage?
Absolutely. Think of it this way. Condensation is a seal's worst nightmare. If moisture gets trapped against the seal's surface, it can lead to all sorts of problems like corrosion and material breakdown.
Okay, so how do we keep condensation at bay?
Well, if you're storing seals out in the open, aim for relative humidity below 75% for most types. For polyurethane seals, you want to go even lower, around 65%. And if you really want to be safe, airtight bags are your best bet. They'll create a nice, stable environment for your seals.
Airtight bags, got it.
Yep.
It sounds like controlling the environment is key. What other environmental factors do we need to be mindful of?
Light and ozone, especially those harsh UV rays, can degrade polymers over time, causing them to weaken and become brittle. And ozone, that's even worse for certain types of seals, especially those made from elastomers.
That's interesting. Could you elaborate on what elastomers are and why they're particularly susceptible to ozone damage?
Sure, elastomers are essentially rubber-like materials. Things that's like silicone or neoprene. They're flexible and great for sealing, but their chemical structure makes them vulnerable to ozone attack. Ozone molecules can actually break down the bonds in elastomers, leading to cracks, surface deterioration, and ultimately seal failure.
So we're talking about protecting seals from things like sunlight and ozone. Are there any specific places or situations where these factors are more likely to be a problem?
Great question, Sprue. Think about areas near high-voltage electrical equipment. Those can generate ozone as a byproduct. You'll also want to be cautious around things like welding operations or even copy machines. They can emit ozone too. As for sunlight, well, that one's a bit more obvious. Just keep those seals out of direct sun whenever possible.
So well-ventilated storage areas away from those ozone-producing culprits are key. Now, I know we've been focusing on environmental factors, but what about physical stressors? Can they impact seal performance too?
Absolutely. We don't want to just protect our seals from the elements, we also need to treat them gently. Hanging seals on hooks, for instance, is a big no-no. Gravity will take its toll, stretching the seal and causing it to lose its shape, and don't even think about stacking heavy objects on top of them. Think of it this way. A relaxed seal is a happy seal. Keep them in their original packaging whenever possible. It's designed to support them properly and prevent any unwanted stress or deformation.
Got it. Now, what about the materials surrounding the seals? Are there any things we should avoid storing them near?
You're on a roll with the questions today, Sprue, and the answer is yes. You'll want to keep those elastomer seals far away from things like gasoline, grease acids, and cleaning fluids. They can actually absorb these substances, causing them to swell or become brittle.
That makes sense, like a chemistry experiment gone wrong. Are there any other materials that can cause problems?
Watch out for certain metals like copper, manganese, and iron. They can react with some seals, leading to corrosion or other forms of deterioration. So the key takeaway here is to be mindful of material compatibility.
Okay.
Think of it like hosting a party. Not all guests get along.
So we've covered temperature, humidity, light, ozone, physical stress, and even material compatibility. Is there anything else our listeners need to know about keeping those seals in pristine condition?
One last tip, but it's a crucial one. Remember, first in, first out.
FIFO. Now that sounds familiar.
Think about that carton of milk in the back of your fridge.
Yeah.
You always want to use the older stuff first.
Right.
Same principle applies to seals. Rotate your stock so that those older seals get used first. This helps ensure that you're always using seals that are fresh and within their recommended shelf life.
We're not just preserving the material itself.
Right.
We're ensuring optimal performance.
Exactly. It's about maximizing the lifespan of your seals and avoiding those pesky leaks down the line. If you suspect a seal might be compromised, even if you can't see any obvious damage, the safest bet is to simply replace it. Think about it, is it really worth the risk of a leak or equipment failure just to save a few bucks on a new seal?
You've got a point there. Sometimes it's better to err on the side of caution, especially when it comes to critical components like seals.
Exactly. And remember, folks, if you're ever unsure about the condition of a seal, don't hesitate to reach out to the manufacturer or a qualified sealing expert for guidance.
That's a great reminder. Manufacturers often have detailed data sheets or storage guides available online or with their products. And let's face it, they want their seals to perform well just as much as we do.
Exactly. So do your homework, consult those resources, and if you have any doubts, don't hesitate to reach out to their customer support team. They're usually more than happy to help.
Okay, this has been incredibly helpful. I feel much more confident about storing seals now, and I know our listeners do too.
Always glad to help. And folks, remember, proper seal storage is an investment in the longevity and performance of your equipment. Take the time to do it right, and those seals will reward you with years of leak-free service.
And don't forget to check out those manufacturer's guidelines for specific storage recommendations.
Absolutely. And when it comes to seals, it's always best to err on the side of caution. Think about it this way. Would you drive your car with worn-out tires? Probably not. Seals are like the tires of your equipment. They're critical components that deserve your attention and care.
Well, I think we've covered just about everything there is to know about seal storage today. From temperature and humidity to material compatibility and even how to spot a damaged seal, our listeners now have a wealth of knowledge to keep their seals happy and their operations running smoothly.
We did. Big thanks to our listeners for joining us today. We hope you found this episode informative and helpful.
And a big shout out to MFP Seals for sponsoring this episode. Be sure to check out their website for a wide range of high-quality seals and sealing solutions.
Absolutely. And don't forget to join us next month for another informative episode of the Manufacturing Monthly podcast. Until then, stay curious, keep learning, and keep those seals in tip-top shape.